Welcome to A Place for Film, the IU Cinema podcast. On this week's episode, we're talking about the Indie Film Con. All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. My name is Andy Hunsucker.
And I'm Sarah Doyle.
And Jason couldn't be here this week. He was out of town for a day, so Sarah is joining us in the second chair. Joining us across the table is Chris Eller.
Good evening.
Who's been on the show many times for 3D film. We should talk a little bit about the 3D stuff as well.
We could recap.
Because I missed the event. I was out of town the day the event was, and I was really very sad because I love seeing that stuff. So you do the 3D film stuff here at IU. You teach 3D film. You do the giant video wall. You do production on your own. And
with the help of our friends at the Indiana Filmmakers Network, which is a statewide organization, we are putting together what we call the Independent Filmmakers Convention, or Indie Film Con for short, and that's going to be hosted here in Bloomington, June 7th, 8th, and 9th.
All right. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. All right. Well, let's talk about the Indie Film Con. So, Chris, why do we need an Indie Film Con?
Some of us were bored. No, actually, we were looking around, and there seems to be, especially with the advent of digital media and self-distribution, that independent filmmaking is becoming more and more accessible to more people. And oftentimes, self-distribution means YouTube or Vimeo. And we wanted to create an opportunity where some of the independent filmmakers, we're not limiting it to Indiana or the Midwest, anybody could send something in, but to give them an opportunity to screen their film in a leading edge, beautiful venue like the IU Cinema.
Yeah.
And couple it with activities that would surround the film screening. So this is why we're trying to differentiate this from a film festival, which is predominantly oriented around screenings of films, and more toward a convention where there are opportunities for workshops and panels and roundtables and networking that are specifically programmed for people to then have those opportunities to meet more people or pick up some skills or show some of the skills that they've already developed and share that back into the community, as well as screening of the films.
Okay. So before we go any further, let's double check. Can people still submit films?
People are welcome to still submit films. The deadline has passed, which just means that if there are gaps after we program the films that arrived by the deadline, if there are still some gaps or we still have some time available, then we'll look at the films that arrived after the deadline. Okay.
So still a chance. If you've just hearing about this today, you can get your film set up there. And also, where can people submit their films if they want to?
Well, you would want to contact us. There's a film submission tab on the Indie Film Con website. We'll get the URL out to you. And you can email in. A lot of people are submitting electronically, which means for the most part you're sending us a link to a YouTube or a Vimeo upload of your film. Some of them are private, and we of course will not give out passwords or anything. And some of them are established pieces. People have asked if they could submit something that they did a year or two ago, and of course, we would love to have the opportunity to show something, hopefully that's really good. So far, everything that we've received has been certainly good enough to screen. It's going to be a matter of then trying to fill out a program so that it works well. But yeah.
Have there been a lot are you getting quite a few?
Well, we have this interesting conundrum. I think it's because we're starting up now. The word isn't as broadly spread as it could be. We have the cinema has granted us about 29 hours worth of screenings that we can program for. And so far we've received right around 11 and a half or 12 hours worth of material.
Right.
So we could either repeat some of the material or, of course, solicit for more if we wanted to just really have a broad survey. But, yeah, so far we've received almost 12 hours worth of material.
Yeah. So let's give the dates again, just in case people are only listening to this part of it.
Wonderful. Yeah, the con is going to be 3 days in June. It's going to start Friday, June 7th in the evening. So it's a Friday evening start. All day Saturday, June 8th, and part of the day into the early evening on Sunday, June 9th.
All right. So again, you just mentioned this. You don't just have screenings. You also have other stuff. So you're not going to reveal the screenings yet. That's okay. Let's talk about the stuff that you are revealing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're trying to publish these events on the website, on the Indie Film Con website, as we kind of get the write-ups and chivvy people to say, hey, you're going to do a workshop for us. Can you give us a description, or we'll make something up? And so some of these workshops are going to be about 3D film production, as well as preparing and packing digital cinema packages. What is a DCP? Why should you care what a DCP is? We're going to be looking at acting for the camera, because you have some actors that come over from a theatrical or even radio background, and they may want to pick up some skills for motion picture acting. Voiceover acting specifically, we have a great voiceover actor here in the region who's going to share some of his knowledge. Directing people for the camera, as well as a women in filmmaking panel. That'll be really nice to attend.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Of course. A survey of the horror genre. We have a large contingent of horror film aficionados, not only viewers but creators, and so we wanted to definitely have a panel about that. It's an interesting genre, and we want to try to cover that, as well as stop motion filmmaking. There will be a workshop on how stop motion films are made, as well as a panel talking just about stop motion cinematography. What can you achieve? What's it, where does it come from? What are some examples of how it works really well? And that's from two folks here at IU who've been working in stop motion for several years now. So we're really trying to cover a broad variety of topics.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like it. And I guess I can talk about the ones I'm doing.
I didn't mention those because there's a handoff.
I am doing 2 of these. The first one I'm doing is very selfish. It is entirely selfish. It's called Building a Press Kit. This is going to be born out of what do I want when I cover your film? What types of material do I want? So just different things that I've learned over doing this for 2.5 years now of saying, wow, I really wish I had this piece of media, or I knew this fact about this. I interviewed this person. It was set up kind of last minute. How do I get that set up? So that, I think, it's going to be very helpful to me. I hope other people find it helpful as well. And I'm also going to do one on multi-camera editing workflow, where I'll actually show you how I edit all this podcast together throughout, and get it done in an amount of time that doesn't make me want to stop doing the podcast. So right now, 3 cameras right now, editing all those together, how to make all of that work, and how to publish that on a schedule where every week you got a thing. And so that will be a lot of fun. That's something I've taught several times before. So that'll be good. Yep. So what kind of atmosphere should people expect at the festival, or at the con? Sorry, the con.
The con. A very congenial atmosphere, because it's a place and an event that's going to allow fans of film, motion pictures, digital movies, whatever you want to call them, to meet and get to know each other and pick up some new skills or disseminate some skills that they've earned at the School of Hard Knocks, we call filmmaking, and to hopefully see some movies. A lot of them are regional. We've had many of the submissions from Indiana, from different cities within the state of Indiana, as well as at least one so far from LA. Actually, that's one of the 3D pieces. We'll have a 3D section.
Nice.
And the woman that submitted that piece, and it's been published already, is she is a VFX artist that worked on Avatar. And as well as some other. She's got quite the credentials there. And so she did a little personal piece that's a short in 3D, and it's very nice. It's very neat. Shows wonderful character growth and development. Both of those. It's a double threat. And the 3D is excellent. And there's some good VFX as well as just good camera work. in there. So that'll be a fun one that we'll be screening as well. So that came all the way over from LA. But almost everything else has been Indianapolis, Bloomington, Evansville area, somewhere around there, basically where we have Indiana Filmmakers Network chapters.
Yeah. Okay, so where is all this going to be held? Because you've got the cinema.
We have the cinema for all the screenings, and then actually in the adjacent building to the cinema, just to the north west of the cinema, is a kind of a compound building. The front end of it is the School of Fine Arts, and then the other end of it is what's called the Radio and TV building. That's where the Department of Telecommunications is housed, as well as the WFIU and WTIU studios. And we have connections with the Department of Telecommunications. Several of the local filmmakers have been through classes there, and that's where I'm an adjunct instructor. So we pitched this to the department, and they agreed to help us schedule some rooms within the building that we could use for the workshops, roundtables, and panels.
Yeah. So I'm looking at your site here. You've got panels and roundtables. What's the difference between a panel and a roundtable?
The idea there was a panel would be very directed by 2 to 3 people who sit on the panel and converse with the audience and with each other about a specific topic. For example, acting for the camera or stop motion cinematography. And a roundtable is kind of open mic night in the sense that there will be somebody there to help facilitate asking leading questions, maybe trying to keep things on track for that sort of thing. But in that, it is definitely audience participation encouraged. So really the difference there is not to be repetitive what I already said.
Yeah. So I see one here at Roundtables, directing challenges and how they were managed. I imagine that's going to be an interesting one.
Oh, yes. War stories.
Yeah.
In that regard. Yeah, we have a couple directors from around the state here. We're not bringing anybody in from out of state. Actually, no, we might be bringing somebody. One of our rather successful folks here who I think moved out to L.A. recently is going to come back. And that's Zach Parker. He recently did a feature called Scalene, which is several months ago got distribution on Netflix. So you can go to Netflix and look up Scalene and watch that. So I believe he's coming back into town for that. So he may be one that has, gone on to a larger pond and will come back to visit us. But yeah, and some of the suggestions on like the roundtables and workshops are these ideas that we have, and we're trying to coalesce those into actual concrete sessions.
Well, what's funny is I went to Ebert Fest a couple weeks ago, and they have panels or roundtables or whatever you want to call them, and they always have a title for them that's very specific, and they never talk about what the titles involve. So literally just put some people up on stage, have them talk about whatever they want for an hour, and that'll be covered. Yeah. So.
Good.
So an hour is about how long these events are going to be? Yeah,
we're actually going to aim for about 50 minutes. This is like, think back to high school. Aim for about 50 minutes, so then there'll be a little bit of time if anybody needs to go use the restroom or just get some fresh air or make a phone call or something like that. And then also to allow the panelists or the workshop people to change over in the room. So there'll be about 50 minutes apiece.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the website here. It also says student volunteers can jump in.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we haven't had any yet. So if you – and what we mean by student volunteers is somebody that wants to help out. You certainly don't need to be a student, but it's always nice to help out the students. And if you do want to volunteer, that would be helping out with just communications, answering questions, guiding people to where they want to go, because we are in 2 separate buildings. Granted, they're like 100 yards apart, but we want to make sure that people get where they need to go. And in exchange for that, they'll have a free pass, what we call a Screenings Plus pass. So I should – hit the microphone. So I should talk about the passes. Really,
yes.
There are 2 passes. One is going to be screenings only, and that will get you access to the IU Cinema for any and all of the screenings. You can go in and just camp out, find your favorite seat, enjoy that memory foam, and just be there for the whole time. And that's $10. Now, these tickets are going to be available online soon. We haven't published the tickets yet because we are still setting the schedule, and the cinema would like to know what the schedule actually is so they can publish that along with the tickets, because the tickets will be available through the IU Auditorium box office, in person and online, as well as at the door at the cinema, and they would like to know when to staff that. So screenings only, ticket $10, and that gets you everything. Then the screenings plus pass is everything at the cinema plus any and all of the workshops, panels, and roundtables that are in the Radio TV building. So in exchange for some student volunteer help with us, we will give them a comp screenings plus pass. So when they're not being asked to perform any duties, they can, of course, go wherever they want and enjoy the con.
Very cool. And how much are those passes going to be?
$20. Thank you for asking. Yes, so $10 for the screenings only and $20 for the screenings plus. We wanted to set this at a level that we think will allow us to recoup our costs. For example, paying the cinema for their house manager, as well as any office supplies that we may consume, the cost of printing the tickets, that sort of thing like that. So we want it very accessible in that regard. As well as why we waived the entry fee. I don't know if you noticed, but there is no entry fee for any of the films, because we could have said, $10, $20, or $30, something like that. That's fairly common for smaller festivals to have a fee like that. But instead, we would rather, instead of giving us $20 and then scrounging around for another $20 to come attend the event, plus your gas money and whatnot, just send your film in and save that $20 and get the pass and come to us as well. We certainly encourage the filmmakers, cast, crew, anybody involved with the production to try and be there if you can, because people hopefully will recognize some names. For some of the larger features, we'll have a brief introduction, and so the filmmaker would be allowed to introduce their film if they wanted to do that. Now, it's a little more difficult with a block of shorts, but for the feature lengths, certainly we can do that, and hopefully that'll start hallway conversations, as it were.
Sure.
Oh, and speaking of hallways, we're also trying to make sure to publicize or to get the word out to the several food trucks that Bloomington is now inhabited by. I believe there are 6 or so.
Yep.
And we want to encourage the food trucks to come hang out.
Oh, definitely.
Over
That would
by
be
the
handy,
cinema.
yeah.
Oh, yes. It'll be really fun.
Yeah.
I really want to see that grilled cheese truck.
So are you going to do like Q&As after the films, that sort of thing?
We're going to look at the possibility of doing curtain talk after the film, and it's going to depend on how many hours that we have to program. And the cinema has also asked that in between blocks they have a half hour to not only clean the auditorium, but also for the projection crew to change over media. Because we can screen, I don't know if you've noticed, but we can screen just about anything. And by we, I mean the IU Cinema.
Yeah.
They are a technological and artistic marvel.
Yes.
So we'll be able to do – the only thing we can't screen is 70-millimeter film. Essentially,
I don't think a lot of
and 8mm.
I don't think a lot of indie filmmakers are going to be shooting on 70.
Yeah, I
They're
don't
not
think
shooting
it's
on
that
70.
popular.
No, a little steep right there, and they can't do 8mm. I mean, they have done 8mm for some stuff, but it's a very special setup.
It's a kludge.
It is, yes, it's somewhat unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it at that. But 16 and 35 millimeter. Now, so far, everything that's been submitted has been in a digital format. I don't know if anything has come in that was originally on celluloid and had been transferred, but everything that has been submitted is digital in some form or another. And we'll be screening digital cinema packages if they're available, otherwise Blu-ray files or possibly computer files. We're going to try and get everything onto either DCP or Blu-ray just for ease of use for the booth, the projection booth crew.
All right. So where are people going to find out more about the Indie Film Con? Who should they follow? What should they follow? Where should they look for this stuff?
Well, we have a couple of options. There is a website, and that's indiefilmcon.com. And the indie is spelled like independent filmmaker, so INDIE, FilmCon, that's all one word.com. You can also look it up. If you just Google Indie Film Con or Independent Filmmakers Convention, which is its full name, I think we're the first or second hit on there, so it's not too bad right there. So we have that website. We're actually running off a Blogger, but we bought the domain so that we have that. We also have a Twitter account, and I can't even remember what exactly it is. If it's indie_film_con.
I think it's all one word. It is it is underscores. Indie_film_con.
Yep, and that's the Twitter account, and we try to keep that as active as possible.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. We don't have a social media specialist So it's kind of when I remember to tweet something out, I'll do that. But we have some followers and people retweet stuff, so that's really nice.
Yeah.
We also have a Facebook page for the con, and we've also set up an event. So, people can join the event, and we'll announce things there as well. But we try to announce them everywhere. So as we post new things on the website, we'll mention it in the page or on the event. And we also have an email address that people can send. So if they go to the Indie Film Con webpage, there's an About page or an About tab, and that has all of our contact information.
Yep, it sure does. Has every little bit of it. Let's talk about is there anything else about the Indie Film Con you want to throw out there?
Well, we really want it to be successful. We're trying to keep it manageable, so we're hoping for at least 50 people will attend. That kind of helps us to approach breaking even, depending on if they get the screening only or the screening plus pass. But we can take up to about 300 people, and that's a slight oversubscription. The cinema seats 262 or something like that, 260 something. And so we're counting on some folks having a pass and not using it all the time. And
that's pretty much
that's
film festival logic. I mean, that's
a little oversell.
Yeah.
And we would love to sell out, to cap it off at 300, and that would then tell us that this is something worth pursuing again. And doing again next year. The cinema was looking for something to do in the summer. They, of course, as part of their mission statement, they're charged with supporting independent film as well as regional and local sort of efforts. This is a great partnership between Indiana University and the community. Even though I'm staff here at IU and several people that attend Indiana Filmmakers Network do have connections to IU, this is not an IU event. This is a community event that IU is supporting through the use of facilities and the use of the cinema. So what we're trying to get out of it is a wonderful experience for as many people as possible, and then to do it again.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Indiana Filmmakers Network.
Sure. Yeah. This is a network that was founded originally in the early 90s, I believe about 1992, up in Indianapolis. It was just a group of folks that knew each other and worked on projects together, and they decided to kind of consolidate, make a real group. And that lasted through the 90s, and it waxed and waned a little bit. And sometime, I think after the turn of the century, the turn of the millennium, that it got revitalized again. It was still going, and then it just jumped up again in people attending and becoming a part of the group. And then about 2 years ago, we down here in Bloomington wanted to start another chapter of it. There had been a second chapter in the Lafayette area for about 3 years now, I believe, 3 or 4 years. And we thought, hey, Lafayette's got one of these filmmaking things. Why can't Bloomington? Because there's that eternal competition there.
Yeah.
So about 2 years ago, a group of us had gone up to attend a couple of the Indy meetings and had gone to some of the Lafayette meetings as well. And so we wanted to start a chapter here in Bloomington. We did, and we've met every month with the exception of December when the group has a large gathering, a holiday gathering up there. But yeah, we meet here in Bloomington the last Tuesday of every month. At the Innovation Center, which is out at 10th and Bypass, and we have door prizes. People are, of course, welcome to sign up as for a membership of the Indiana Filmmakers Network. That's $20, and that supports a really good organization. You get a T-shirt out of it, but it also helps them to do some neat projects. And there was actually this idea of a con had been percolating within the board for a while. And we had a meeting, I sit on that, and we had a meeting several months back and thought, hey, let's make this happen. And they said, okay, where are we going to do it? And I said, well, even though we're kind of the new chapter, or well, relatively new chapter, we've got this fantastic cinema who looks for stuff like the things that we make, and we've got this great school nearby that would maybe help with rooms and whatnot. So we decided to do that. And by the way, I should add that there's some other chapters. There's one in Greenwood, and there's one in Evansville, and there's one in the Calumet area as well.
Where's Calumet?
Just outside of Chicago.
Okay.
East Chicago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I've attended not every certainly, but maybe a third of the Indie Filmmakers Network meetings, and it's actually it's really good.
You've presented at one.
I have presented at one. I actually presented this efficient video editing workflow thing. So give it to a broader audience, I guess, this time. But, it's great because it's not just everyone sits in a room and watches the presenter and goes home. Everybody there introduces themselves and says, this is what I can do. So you can go to this meeting. It's almost like a draft. You can go there and be like, there's that guy who does lighting. I need that guy. And here's this girl who writes. I need her. And here's these other people who all do all these different things. And there's like, and it's not even just like, oh, well, I direct and I write and that's it. It's like I write, I direct, I do makeup, I do hair, I do 1,000 different things, like everything imaginable. You could come up with a really and I know people do. They come up with their production crews out of Indie Film Network meetings.
Well, that's the N in IFN, networking.
Yeah. So, and I've even pulled quite a few podcast guests right out of the Indie Filmmakers Network, and I bet you can't tell which ones I pulled either. Go back and watch.
Competition.
There is. There is. Some of them I met there and pulled in. Some of them they just talked about something interesting on there, and I was just like, come on my podcast and talk about that thing again because it was really interesting. So, love the Indiana Filmmakers Network. Very good organization. And so, are they like are they considered the organizers of this event, or is this like a subgroup, or is it the whole Indiana Filmmakers Network is supporting this event?
It is the whole IFN effort right there that's doing that. I mean, the Bloomington chapter is doing a lot of the initial heavy lifting just because we have the relationship with IU, with the cinema, with the Department of Telecommunications. But the entire IFN group is helping to put on the event. We want it to be not just a Bloomington thing or even an Indiana thing. We want it to be become a regional go-to. Regional? Did I say that? Regional go-to event. And IFN just wants to start this up because, the whole idea of a rising tide raises all the boats. We want to do something that will help the filmmaking community in this whole area. But, you got to start somewhere. So we're starting here in Bloomington.
Well, and that's the other thing that I like about it because, I read all these posts on the Indiana Filmmakers Network like, hey, I just finished this movie. It's playing at this festival on the other side of the country, and it's playing at this festival on the other side of the country, but I want to see that movie.
Right.
So it's great that all these sort of projects, and I hope that it expands as you go, and then it just becomes a thing where it doesn't matter if you're from Indiana or not. You can just sort of be out in the world, like you're like the filmmaker from LA, and just say, well, I could screen there. That'd be worthwhile. So
absolutely, yeah, we would love to become established, to arrive on the film circuit and have people send stuff in. But we got to start somewhere. We know we're going to be starting small.
Yeah,
and that's all right. You know where to go but up.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to talk about with the Indie Film Con or the Filmmakers Network?
Well, I would just encourage people, if they're thinking about sending something in, even though the deadline is passed, just send it in. Just send it in. We'll give it an honest judging and see if it'll fit into – because at this point, we would rather screen as many different things as possible than screen fewer things and repeat them. Because we just want everybody to get their shot in the limelight right there. And, we've got shorts, we've got features, we've got documentaries, we've got fictional narrative, we've got 3D, we've got 2D, we've got even old standard def stuff, people sending in DVDs that it was just shot on, mini DV or Super 8 or whatever. And we'll screen it as if it's good enough. And the neat thing is good enough is what a lot of people are already doing.
Yeah.
So that's just send it in and come to us. Come visit,
Yeah.
Realistically, as much as I would love 300 people to show up, it's going to be less than that. But we want it to be as many as possible. And even if you only come for part of the time, at $10, that's like a ticket to a movie on, in the regular Cineplex. And here you can see several movies and shorts and talk with people who aren't just there because they want to get out of the house or send the kids over to whatever to be babysit by the film. These are people that are film fans and filmmakers and creators, very creative people. So it's a great place to just celebrate storytelling with like-minded people.
All right. Let's get out of here. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for doing all the work to put together this Indie Film Con. Indie Film Con, June 7th to 9th. And you can get tickets at the door.
Yes, yeah, you'll be able to do that as well as at the IU Auditorium box office. You can do that online and in person soon. They're not well, by the time the podcast airs, they may be available.
Okay.
We're working on that in the next couple days.
Okay.
So very soon.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for watching. My name is Andy.
And I'm Sarah.
This has been, and always will be, A Place for Film. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.